Hey, it's Jake Hunter, and I'm on the StarShine Magazine Podcast.
Today we're talking about being a self-starter in the entertainment industry and creating your own path. I am someone who has decided to take things into my own hands by starting StarShine Magazine on my own, and I really didn't know anything about starting a magazine, or it wasn't even my intention. I was a young kid who just wanted experience in journalism, and it wound up being the best thing I ever did. I made a lot of contacts really quickly. I really proved myself as a writer and as someone who was serious about journalism. So the same thing kind of happened when I went to start publishing my novels. I'm a self-published author, and in fact, before I published my first novel, Lost in You, it was inspired by my love of boy bands. I actually gave the book to AJ McLean from the Backstreet Boys' mom, who was a friend of mine and used to write for StarShine back in the day. He advised me about the issues with the publishing industry. And just like with the music industry and the movie industry, there's a lot involved when you go the traditional route. So I'm always a supporter of the indie types of people like myself. My guest today, Jake Hunter, who is an actor, producer, and writer. He wasn't getting roles that he really wanted, or he didn't see a platform for himself, so he created one. I'm here today with Jake Hunter. For those of you who don't know him, he is an Emmy award-winning producer from the Bay, and then you also produced and wrote Class Act, they're both available on Amazon Prime, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
All right. So Jake, how are you today?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you got involved in acting and producing?
Yeah, I only wanted to play baseball my whole life. I'd done that since I was like 7 or 8 years old. And it was the same type of situation, is that I wasn't necessarily as talented as the kids around me or whatever it may be. And so I had to create a lot of my own opportunities. So as I grew older, I wanted to play, varsity college ball. It was not easy. Like my junior year of college or of high school, I got cut from the varsity team. And so, and I had some other like family issues and stuff going on. And so it was not an easy time at like that 15-year-old age. That's just always, kind of tough for everyone. I feel like so you're learning how to be an adult. And I just went and I worked and I hit before school and I hit after school and I worked on my game, and I came back the next year and I made the varsity team, and then I ended up getting a scholarship to play in college, and I didn't want to stop there. I wanted to keep playing after that, and so I just kept working, and I definitely didn't have the easiest college career either. My stats weren't anything to brag about for sure, but I ended up getting to play 1 year of indie pro ball as well after that, and then that was kind of where the road was stopping. I actually drove 4 hours to go to this open tryout for the Phillies from upstate New York to Philadelphia. And I left at like 3 a.m. that day to get to be like one of the first ones there. And I showed up and they wouldn't let me try out. They actually had canceled it like last minute.
Oh, no. That sucks.
Yeah. And so then I was eating at a Chipotle nearby there for lunch, and someone slipped me a card. And it was from a talent agent around there. And it was just kind of like a weird universe thing, I guess.
Yeah.
And I had nothing else really going on. That was kind of the tipping point for me in terms of looking for something else to do, or maybe they were trying to switch my path a little bit. The universe was, I don't know, whatever it may be. I got this guy's card. I went, I signed with this agency. And then I went into a few acting classes and I loved it. And it was the same thing with acting. I showed up to my first acting class. And my teacher was like, "You got to be kidding me!" Like she was like, I was the prototype like athlete. I just stood there with my arms crossed. I would like, everyone's trying to do like these warm up exercises where it's not even. I wouldn't even call it vulnerable. It's like just basic, like 101 acting stuff that I was totally closed off to. And she said that I was the stiffest student that she ever had in her life. And and so I was like, right now I am, but watch, I'm going to be the best student you're ever going to have. Like, that's what I told her. And I don't know, I just worked really hard. That's what I've done for like the last 4 years is, besides the business side of it, on the acting side, there has not been a day, just like going to the gym, whatever it may be, that I haven't acted. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I'm working on my craft every single day to get better. And that's what I did on the business side is I sit down every single day and I figure out how am I going to get closer to my goal. And my goal is necessarily now it changes. You kind of change as an artist as things go on and you figure out what kind of fulfills you artistically. And for me, it was getting on bigger and bigger stage, but now it's just making work that I feel like says what I want to say, if that makes sense.
Right. No, it totally does.
Yeah. So that's kind of how I've ended up doing it. I came here like about 4 years ago now. I met with a guy named Ken Sunshine, who's kind of like a mentor of mine.
I know Ken.
Yeah. You know Ken?
Yes.
Yeah. So I met with Ken and and I'm like, Ken, I want to be an actor. And he's like, don't do that. And I'm like, no, I really want to do it. And he's like, all right, well, I don't know why you're here then. You should go to LA. And so I then packed up and moved right to LA after he said that. And then he's like, oh, wow, you actually moved to LA. I like kind of am nervous that he did that, but like also low key respect it. I don't know. So it was kind of funny how that worked out. And then he started meeting with me because then I moved to LA. It wasn't like the smoothest transition. I was just cruising around, just doing basic work of trying to get by, trying to swing it. And not booking anything either.
Oh, wow.
So it took me, several months before I even started booking kind of like those beginning projects to get footage and stuff like that. And then I just was like, I got to start making my own stuff. Like I'm not going to sit around and wait any longer. So I knew what I could play easily, which was an athlete. I was an athlete. So I'm like, I'm just going to make something where I play an athlete. So I played a boxer in this short film. And in that short film, there was a woman by the name of Andrea Evans who was on the Bay and, kind of linked us up. And so then I moved right on to the Bay and right after that. So it was really not that long of a time that after I made that connection of like, I have to be proactive to where stuff started happening. Mm-hmm. And then that kind of started spiraling things from there, I would say.
That's awesome. And how did you start? How did you get to be a producer? I don't even know like the full, job description of a producer. So
right.
You can explain that to me.
It's just figuring out how to make a project happen, right? So essentially I had to figure out a way to make a project in order to display myself, unless I wanted to just keep going to casting calls and just waiting for my phone to ring, essentially, which I've never done, and I'm not going to do that. So I had to start by just writing a script. It was the same thing when I started acting. I wrote it, I showed somebody, and they're like, this is crap, And I was just like, well, how can you help me? Where can we go from there? They gave me a few books on screenwriting and stuff like that. I read a few scripts, read like Rocky and Fight Club, stuff like that. I just saw how these rules and this structure was implemented into scripts. Just like in acting, there's technique and different methods that you can use, the same type of thing. So I did that. I worked on the script. I casted it. I booked the whole crew. I booked the locations. And then, we raised a little bit of money to make it happen, obviously, but it was a lot of favors and stuff like that. And so, yeah, we shot it. We made it happen and then got into a few festivals with it. But it was more of the experience of learning how to do something in like it was my thing. So it wasn't like, the only one that was set up to fail was myself. That was cool. Like there was no responsibility. That's what I've kind of had this whole ride is it's been cool because there's been not really any responsibility. I felt no matter what, whether it's been the highs or the lows, it's just been super like free, if that makes sense. And so it's been cool. And I've been able to go after something and really live life. It's been cool.
And I know that you just got finished doing a movie with Robert De Niro and Morgan Freeman. That's awesome. What was that experience like?
That was a pretty cool experience. That, I got to I had like 3 scenes in that. He's still so with it, and he's just, I got to study him. I got to learn from some of the best people that have done it. I got to see him do it. I got to see Tommy Lee Jones do it. And Zach's great too. But anyway, we didn't really talk at all during the first few scenes. And then I had one scene to where, without giving really anything away, this dude, like, he passes out at a bar in between us, and we kind of look at each other and we're like, what the heck is wrong with that guy? And it was cool just having that moment with one of the best movie stars of all time. And then after that take, he came up to me and he's like, in a very De Niro-like way, and he was like, you have pretty good instincts. And then he shook my hand. And
wow.
Yeah, and so that was really, really cool to have that experience with him. And the other thing is just like, it was a big movie. It was a really cool experience working with him.
Very cool. So now let's talk about Class Act. What can you tell us about that series?
Well, that was one I created after the Bay. So I didn't create the Bay. I just got to kind of work on that. It was another one I got to learn a lot while doing it. And then I wanted to do it on my own, essentially. And so I got to do Class Act by using kind of like the point person that we had over at Amazon. I got to talk with them. I had this idea of this project that I made when I got here. It was just my story. It was just kind of like me showing up to LA and then getting to elevate some of the characters, I guess, a bit in the comedic sense, but also showing how tough it is to make it as an actor as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then we brought in like Eric Roberts and some other people, and it was definitely a fun little series that's up now that you can watch.
Yeah, I also binged that over the weekend.
Oh, nice.
It's very
a lot
cool.
of binging this weekend.
I know, right?
Yeah.
I try to prepare fully for all of my
interviews. I appreciate that. Yeah.
But so your character Stefano.
Yeah.
It seems kind of autobiographical, because I know that he was sleeping in his car, and didn't you also? I read somewhere that you also slept in your car.
Yeah, I did. I did. It's autobiographical, but also not. Like, there are certain things in terms of the sleeping in the car, it also was drawn out more dramatic in the show than it was in real life. For me in real life, again, it was the same thing, to where I try to take everything as like I chose for it to be this way. And for someone that grew up in upstate New York, I was getting to live like by the ocean for the first time. I was getting to go, I was in California. I was getting to do anything that I live anywhere I wanted to live, essentially. So it wasn't as bad as it seemed like in the show. And also, like, the relationship stuff is not necessarily what happened, but a lot of the characters were actually pretty spot on. Like, when I joined these acting classes, you have these different characters, and it can be really funny and also really sad, like how it actually is. And that's kind of just what we wanted to show, is just another piece of work that displays what it's like trying to make it in Hollywood.
Right. Yeah. It was very, it felt realistic watching it. And the way it was filmed also, it has a very raw feel to it, which I like.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
No problem. What advice would you give to someone trying to break into the movie industry?
My biggest advice would be to go make it yourself, whatever you have to do, whether you're a musician or an actor. There's things that you can do to, I've seen tons of musicians make covers all the time, or whatever it may be, utilizing these platforms that we have, the social media platforms, to show your work, whatever it is that you may, want to create, and just not taking no for an answer. I mean, that's the biggest thing that I've done is that it has definitely not been a gimme situation in any type of project that I've worked on or any break that I've gotten. It's just been purely like not taking no for an answer. And so